viewers. Welcome to the Evening Review Show. I'm Matthias Ofiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Well, it seems the year has well and good kicked off, and there's a lot happening so far. Quite early days still. Many of you are still getting back to work, but well, we are already busy gathering and disseminating news to keep you informed. Tonight, we have in studio Mr. Vekondja Tjikuzu he's a member of the technical committee of the Chiefs Assembly. Of course, 12th January is a very historic day for the Wairero community. Also, as far as the resistance war against the German occupation, especially in Namibia, which specifically affected the Wairero and Nama communities is concerned. This is the day that then Wairero Paramount Chief Samuel Maero decided that enough is enough. And from here onwards, we are going to take up arms and fight for what's ours. 120 years later tomorrow, that it is, this issue has still not been put to bed as far as the genocide matter is concerned. Yeah. I know it was quite a very hectic and heavy situation, and perhaps it explains why it takes so long to find closure. Can you just take us through it a bit as to why we are still having this matter on our tables?
No, thank you very much for having me, and compliments to all viewers and the team here. Now, it's an interesting question you are putting forward, in as much as we are talking about 120 years. In terms of us really waking up and try to put the issue on the table, it started 20 years back. 100 years have passed, we're still under colonialism, and we could not do much under those circumstances. After our independence, that is when we said, now we have a free nation, we can start taking the issue to the table of the Germans. So, as you correctly pointed out, the resistance was caused by the brutalities and the atrocities which were caused by the Germans over the period since 1884, when they came here. And through that process, the Herero people lost a lot of their assets in terms of land, in terms of livestock, and even their own dignity. And that is when, as you pointed out, the leader then, Paramount Chief Samuel Maero, after having tried to negotiate and try to sign treaties with the German authorities, and even while they are trying to negotiate, the brutalities could not stop, and the thievery or the theft of the land and livestock continued. Yeah. And it came to that point on 12th January 1904, when they said, enough is enough, we have to defend ourselves. And that is when the first bullets were fired in Okahanja.
Since, in an independent Namibia that is, since this matter has been brought to the fore to say now we have to find closure to the genocide matter, which includes, of course, the perpetrators, which is Germany, accounting for their deeds back then. What do you make of the way it has been handled from a Namibian perspective?
One, for a long time, especially after 2004, after independence, up to and until 2004, when we said, let us commemorate or remember 100 years since the war started. And we started organizing ourselves as a community. And in the long run, when it came by August 2004, the whole nation was almost about on the table and say, yes, we have to have to put our voice to the issue. The government was represented. Almost all of Shiro speaking and Nama speaking communities were represented when we met in Hamakari. And the German government was represented, as you know, by the Minister of International Development. That is actually the time when you can say real issues and real awareness was was created. So what took the issue so long is, for a long time, many people did not even believe that an issue so far in the past will even be relevant today, or will make even sense. The other thing is the issue was initiated by the communities themselves and not by the government. And even when the communities wanted to bring in the government honestly was very reluctant to take up the issue at that stage.
Yeah.
On the German side, even despite all the efforts by the communities and the demonstrations and the bringing the issue to the front, to the door of the Germans, the firstest thing which the German could not even want to entertain is to accept that the issue is a genocide. And we had to spend a lot of time try to convince ourselves, the German government, Namibian government, and the international community, that because of the nature of the atrocities committed, and because of the intent of the German government, these things should be classified as a genocide. And when we started moving closer to an agreement, after all the debates, we started moving to the apology issue and the reparation. The reparation also became an obstacle in terms of whether the issue was a legal issue or a political issue. The Germans citing that they have social and political responsibility to those communities and not legal. So that debate continued, and that is what took so long for us to arrive where we are today. Now, because of international pressure, because we have taken the issue from national, from community to national, to regional, up to international community, and that helped at least to accept the pressure on the German government so that they can at least start negotiating. Especially when our government also started bringing their words on the table.
You mentioned earlier on that from the onset, the public wanted government to sort of come onto the table to also be part of this. But development in recent years, especially the rift between some of the affected communities and government, one wonders where did we go wrong? If initially the affected communities wanted to bring government closer to the matter, now all of a sudden it seems like, but whoa, government, this has nothing to do with you. We must be the ones championing this cause, and you must just sit back and wait for us to say, let's move in this direction.
The interesting enough is that the motion which was passed in Parliament was passed unanimously. So there was a common agreement. Everybody agreed that we have to engage the Germans. In terms of the modalities on how that engagement is going to be done, we thought it was agreed and everybody understood it the same way. It came on the interpretation of the motion and in terms of the implementation, where the communities felt or understood, correctly so, that the negotiations is going to be the perpetrators and the descendants of the victims. Government will play a facilitating role in this whole negotiation. That was the understanding on the one side in terms of the community. Government on the part, and the two governments in particular, that negotiations have to take between two sovereign states. So, in a way, what many of us will say, the process was hijacked at that stage. And at that stage, government actually came on board and started running with the game. It was not far into the negotiations that the issue of, say, fronting the negotiations, especially with the special envoy, put one of them in the front, and we are going to, so that at least the negotiations can be seen to be representative. The community, from our part as a community, we feel, and strongly so, that the team which is negotiating on our behalf is not a legitimate one, because those ones, the representatives, did not necessarily, are not representing the communities they are claiming to come from.
Mm-hmm.
The team which was requested by government, just really requested, provide us with few names for people to serve on a technical team.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional authority, the traditional leaders themselves, who are supposed to be champions of this, were left just to come and be told.
Mm-hmm.
And to us, that is the first flaw.
Mm-hmm. But were these names submitted when they were requested for?
Now, the names initially were, some groups did submit.
Yeah.
For members to serve on the technical committee of the government, and later on they came up with a formula where a forum was created, not a statutory body, but a forum was created where the chiefs were just being briefed after what is happening in the negotiations. To us, that whole arrangement is what is not singing very well with us, because we don't feel that those ones who are negotiating are really legitimately representing our interest.
Okay. So, as a technical committee, the one on which you serve, of course, under the umbrella of the Chiefs Assembly, does it worry you that perhaps the Germans, which you are supposed to be negotiating with, would perhaps use this seeming division between the Namibian government and the affected communities to their advantage?
They are already doing that. They are definitely taking advantage of not only the division between government and the descendants of the affected communities, but even within ourselves, there are divisions in terms of how we are approaching that. And both governments are taking advantage of that division. So it's not working in our favor.
Yeah.
It will be better if at all we speak with one voice, as one unit, with the same agenda.
Yeah. The 2006 motion was unanimously adopted. At the time, the descendants from affected communities were speaking with one voice. And I believe till now your hopes and aspirations as different segments of the affected communities are still the same. So why is it so difficult to find common ground to say, colleagues, let's hold hands, after all we are championing for the same goal? What is it that's so intense that it can't have everyone on the same table?
I think on that one I will just give you my personal opinion. In as much as we, and I have tried to unravel that whole question which you address, where are we differing in terms of the approach, what we want? And if you ask each and every one of those groups, they will tell you three things. We want the Germans to recognize that the atrocities they committed is genocidal. We want them to apologize authentically, and we want to pay reparation. And then we say, so why are we not rallying behind this as a group? It will all come down to the whole issue of struggle for power and leadership. Who is going to lead the whole group? There was a time, especially during the time of Paramount Chief Kwame Rurako, having started the whole thing, very few people could contest that he was the initiator. And a lot of people were following the same direction, except for one or two groups. But after his passing on, may his soul rest in peace, you could see the split. We started splitting more instead of coming together more. And that is the unfortunate thing. And I will just say that it could be one of many reasons, but most importantly, is who's going to be the leader, who's going to lead the process. And nobody wants to be led by anyone. Everyone wants to be led by themselves.
Yeah.
So that could be the cause. But we cannot, and we should become aware that the only way of winning this game is when if we stand together and fight as one solid unit.
Yeah. You've earlier this week authored a statement in honor of 12th January, which is tomorrow. In the statement, you make mention to say that the negotiations have been hijacked by the joint declaration. Of course, the one between the Namibian and German governments. What components of this joint declaration is not sitting well with the descendants of the affected communities?
For one, especially the one which we have seen so far, we know that there might be many more versions, but the one which we have seen so far was, among many flaws, they successfully tried to avoid the two most important concepts which will make the whole issue a genocide, and therefore they did not specifically talk about the genocide. Where they did mention a word genocide, it was not even maybe clearly stated which are the groups to which the genocide was committed. That is one. Two, the word reparation in that whole document is missing also.
Yeah.
So one of the aspects, and that is just one. In terms of paragraph 220 then of that document, one of the aspects which was very worrisome is that based on what they have agreed to pay and based on what they have agreed as two governments, paragraph 20 was saying this will be the end of any payment on this matter. So to us, that did not sit very well.
Yeah.
When you when you read through the whole document, it's clearly also sounded one-sided. The tone and sound of it was, this document was prepared by the Germans and maybe initialed by the Namibian team.
Yeah. So the longer this impasse goes on, the inability to finalize the negotiations and reach whatever conclusion, hopefully in the interest of the affected communities. What impact do you see it having on the descendants of this affected?
The unfortunate thing is that the impact on the descendants of the victims is already being felt even today in many spheres, both social, economic, psychological. And what one was hoping is, if we can bring this chapter to a closure now, we are going to avoid many sufferings in the future. Because the impact which is being felt, and I was telling my folks at home during the vacation, so this is not where we're supposed to be. Our ancestors had very fertile parcels of land in the interior, but we have been displaced to be here. This year also not only marked the 120 years of the beginning of the genocide, but it is also marking 100 years since our people started being resettled, being forced into reserves in 1924.
Yeah.
So all in all, the current situation economically and socially, even in terms of the psychological part of it, which is being felt today, will be even more severe.
Yeah.
if at all this impasse is not addressed and resolved during these current discussions.
Yeah. What do you make of government's efforts since independence to, as far as land redistribution is concerned, the issue of resettlement and so on, taking into consideration what you've just mentioned now, the issue of displacement? Do you think these policies have to a certain extent, address the past injustices that were committed against the affected communities, those affected by the genocide?
Especially when it comes to the issue of land, no, not at all. I think it has worsened even the situation.
Why is that?
For one, the issue when the current policies of government, say for instance, let me start with the resettlement policies, are not having a part or a quota which they say these parcels, this will also address those ones who have lost land, for one. And the whole issue of, for one, and then now they have introduced a new policy, which they are formulating and trying to discuss with the communities, and that is even going to make things even worse, because now the three type of categories which they have put is even going to worsen the situation, where you have to be of certain certain qualification and certain amount of money which you have to have a certain type of farm.
Yeah. You mean it will make it worse on the affected?
On the affected community.
Yes.
It will maybe be worse on the whole Namibian population in general, those ones who really need land, and even more worse for those ones who have been displaced and who have been affected and who have lost land. I think if at all, that is an area where we have to revisit. The so-called communal area land in terms of the current act is not even helping at all. It's a state that the land belongs to the state. Traditional authorities are given at least the power to allocate land, but only 50 hectares is within their powers. And this 50 hectares is just for your residential and a small garden, which you can, our people cattle depending on livestock. So when you are looking in terms of only 50 hectares and the commonage belong to all, that is not even helping our people to push their lives, their living conditions, to improve their living conditions. Our villages are overcrowded because the surface areas is not growing, the population is growing, and therefore when you want to expand, the whole area is covered. Unfortunately, even within the areas where we are trying to make a living for now, communal areas, we are faced with our own challenges in terms of fencing and all land grabbing and all that. But those are the issues which need to be addressed. Those people who are having large number of livestock in communal areas are the ones which should be considered for resettlement farms, so that at least they can create space, breathing space for those who are less fortunate and have less number of livestock, and therefore you have more grazing. And that can improve their livelihoods. But now the people who can afford to go into commercial areas are the ones now under the new proposed policy, which are now going to be allocated even better and bigger farm under the resettlement policy. So the whole issue, and when you are talking about genocide, you cannot talk about genocide without addressing the whole issue of land and displacement. And the other way around is also true. You cannot talk about landlessness and you don't talk about
Yeah.
the causes of it, which was the genocide.
Yeah.
So I think it is one of the issues at the front of our cause.
Okay. Well, Mr. Tjikuzu, thank you very much for your time this evening, and we wish you well during this very important cause.
No, thank you very much. All I want to make sure is that at least people, the public out there should be aware that the 12th January is a very important day in our history and calendar. And for this year, 2024, we want to make sure that at least we create more awareness.
Yeah.
We want the public to start trying to understand. What I was saying is, those who have started this movement have already passed. We can talk of Dr. Gavirwes, Dr. Rwakos, and them. They have passed. Us who are following in their footsteps are ready to go.
Yeah.
We want the youth now to start joining and come closer to the activities and try to make sure that they understand where we are, so that at least there is continuity, and we're going to fight to the end for the betterment of all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate having us.
Yeah. Well, that's it from the evening review team this evening. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a pleasant evening.